My name is Laurie Iacono. I'm an Associate Managing Director with the Cyber Threat Intelligence team. This week I'm joined by multiple members from our CTI team who will be covering the most recent trends that they are seeing in the trenches. So the topics we will be covering this week include, first of all, George Glass will be talking about Ivanti MobileIron exploitation in the wild, followed by Ryan Hicks, Senior Associate, who will be discussing HOTRAT malware being delivered via cracked software. Next, we have Dave Truman, Vice President, talking about a remote code execution vulnerability on OpenSSH. Followed by Mukesh Nagar, Vice President, who will be covering MacOS malware. And then finally, we will have Sarah Becker, Vice President, talking our Ransomware Round-up. So I'll hand it over to George first to start the session on Ivanti MobileIron exploitation.
Thank you very much, Laurie, and welcome everyone. We're going to be talking about Ivanti MobileIron exploitation. Ivanti MobileIron Endpoint Manager Mobile, which was previously branded MobileIron Core, has been identified to be vulnerable to a information disclosure vulnerability, which actually has a few slight nuances to it as well. So this vulnerability is dubbed CVE 2023-35078, and it has a CVSS score of 10, which is the most it could possibly be, which of course means it is critical. It is actively exploited in the wild, and the vulnerability allows unauthenticated access to specific API paths, which means that those paths can be used to access personally identifiable information, names, phone numbers, and other such things that you may configure for that particular device. But it also allows an attacker to change configuration, which actually could be used to create a new administrative account and then make any further changes to a vulnerable system. Of course, due to the nature of the MobileIron application and its accessibility to other endpoints on a network, that could be extremely impactful. The Norwegian National Security Authority also confirmed that the vulnerability had been exploited to attack government services. And indeed, we did a showdown scan to try and identify what the attack surface of this vulnerability looks like. And it does appear to be, mostly Northern Europe and North American sort of hosted. And many of those hosting providers were hosting on behalf of government systems as well. Lots of .gov domains in that search. So the recommended actions are, of course, to patch. The latest versions are shown there, but it's also worth noting that end-of-life versions also received a patch as well because of the criticality of this vulnerability. And that's all for me on this one. I will hand back over to Laurie.
Okay, thanks, George. And I'll hand it over to Ryan now to talk about a delivery method for HOTRAT malware.
Thanks, Laurie. Hi, everyone. So there's been a reporting of a malware called HOTRAT, which is derived from async rat, being delivered via fake or cracked software downloads. The extended capabilities of HOTRAT include the ability to steal personal information and credentials, as well as to deploy further malware to the victim device. And similar to previously observed campaigns surrounding kind of the fake software downloads, the victim really is seeking out the software, searching for it, rather than kind of being delivered to them, such as sort of phishing. So they're actually kind of going out searching for the software and downloading it themselves. The malware posing as legitimate software was observed being hosted on a number of places, including social media, torrent sites, forums, public repositories, where the victim kind of searching could be naturally led to download the malware. And the image on the right shows one such post on social media, claiming in this case to have a copy of Adobe Illustrator. And the list of fake and cracked software that are frequently used includes tools such as Photoshop, Microsoft Office, CCleaner, sort of the advanced PC repair type software. So there's quite an extensive list that threat actors are kind of using as laws to deploy this kind of malware, and that also includes video games. We've seen sort of cracked video games. In the case of HOTRAT, once the victim runs the fake setup executable, an auto hotkey script runs. Now, auto hotkey is a legitimate tool for kind of multiple uses, including sort of people can create mouse button macros and keyboard rebinds. But as it's open source and a scripting language, actors are actually using this for their own purpose, including in this case to execute further programs. And the auto-hotkey script for HOTRAT will launch the legitimate software setup. So if the lure is Photoshop, it will actually launch the install for Photoshop, really trying to trick the victim into thinking that no malicious activity is occurring. However, in the background, a PowerShell script is executed, which firstly attempts to disable the antivirus on the host, and it also sets up a scheduled task that is used to deploy the final HOTRAT payloads for information gathering. Now, shifting slightly across to our observations, we really continue to see cases of where users download cracked software that has delivered malware into their sort of corporate environment. And in May, we saw Chrome Loader that acts as a browser hijacker, and that's designed to redirect traffic and change browser settings. And this incident was triggered by a user-initiated download of a file, which was associated with exploits for a video game. So again, not just sort of software, but related to video games as well. And in this case, when executed, the malicious download established fileless persistence with the aim of installing a malicious Chrome extension. And if the user attempted to remove this, the underlying persistence actually ensured it was reinstalled, and that also had the capability to communicate back to the actor. And there have been various observations also earlier in 2023 of information stealers, Raccoon and Vidar, also being delivered through cracked software, which could have more serious consequences really for company data being exfiltrated. So really kind of education continues to be key in this, ensuring that users go to official repositories to download sort of the software that's required within the corporate environment. And with that, I'll hand back to Laurie. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. So next we're going to have Dave Truman talk about a remote code execution vulnerability.
Thank you, Laurie. Qualys released an article regarding vulnerability CVE 2023-38408 in the OpenSSH authentication agent that runs on a user's client machine. The vulnerability allows an actor to run remote code on a user's client machine if the user logs into the server the actor controls and the user is running the OpenSSH authentication agent in forwarding mode. From an attacker's perspective, the likely use case for this vulnerability would be for lateral movement from a compromised perimeter server into the organization's network. It should be noted that the exploitation is complex, requiring the loading and unloading of shared libraries on the client machine, where certain libraries, when loaded and unloaded, will change the state of the stack, allowing for code execution. Since not all libraries have the desired behavior, and not all behaviors have been found in libraries on a default install, some technical knowledge and environment-specific research is required of the attacker. The OpenSSH developers have released a patch version. We recommend updating to a version where this patch applies. It is also recommended in the OpenSSH man page that where possible, using a jump host is preferred over OpenSSH agent forwarding, as it does not require the same trust level of the server by the client. Thank you. Laurie?
Thanks, Dave. And next, Mikesh will be covering macOS malware.
Thank you, Laurie. Hello, everybody. So a new malware has been identified in the wild by a security researcher that goes by Deadlies, called REALST. The malware is distributed through malicious websites being advertised for fake blockchain games with names like Brawl Earth, Wild World, and others. Each version of the game has its own dedicated website, as well as Twitter and Discord accounts used to lure victims. Sentinel-1, whilst researching this malware, identified 16 variants across 59 different samples. They suspect a connection to another information stealer campaign called Pureland, which has been seen targeting Windows machines with Redline Stealer. The attack chain of this malware involves convincing potential victims through direct messages on social media platforms to test a game as part of a paid collaboration. Once the malware has been downloaded and executed, the malware begins to drain cryptocurrency wallets as well as steal sensitive information from the target's machine. It targets web browsers like Brave, Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Vivaldi. However, it does not touch Apple Safari. REALST can also gather information from telegrams as well as capture screenshots of the victim's machines. This malware also demonstrates in-depth knowledge of the macOS environments, suggesting a skill development team specializing in macOS threats. This is due to most variants trying to steal the user's password through OS script and Apple script spoofing while checking the host device's authenticity. Our team has successfully ingested the indicators of compromise into our MISP instance and have distributed these IOCs across to our detection technologies. With that, I will hand over back to Laurie. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikesh. So last but not least, we have Sarah Becker. She's a vice president on our CTI team, and she'll be covering the Ransomware Roundup, which will include updates on CLOP, as well as a new variant going by the name NoBit. Sarah?
Thanks, Laurie. So for CLOP, Kroll recently published a third article, and it's in regards to the MoveIt file transfer vulnerabilities. Within those, there's actually two distinct file exfiltration methods that were used by the threat group. The first exfiltration method was used to drop the web shell, which in that injected a session or it created a malicious account that allowed the group, the threat actors, to transfer those files from the MoveIt application. The second method that was observed was the data exfiltration capabilities that were built into the web shell. This method involved the interaction with the API from MoveIt. It then created these indicators of compromise that were observed in approximately 5% of the Kroll MoveIt engagements. So then approximately 45 days after CLOP began posting all of the MoveIt victims that were affected by this vulnerability, the site has now dropped over 200 entities, and the number is still increasing. CLOP has also started a new method of creating a ClearNet site that is specifically targeting certain entities. So within this comes with the claims of this could apply pressure to these entities or companies to pay the ransom, and it's just an easier way for the data to get distributed for general public use to obtain. So this is a newer method. Researchers are saying that CLOP is estimated to earn $75 million from these exploitation attacks. And then the new ransomware as a service that's being advertised is called NoBit RAS Builder. Users who are interested in obtaining this builder, they can get a lifetime license for, as of right now, $200. That allows them the ability to encrypt virtually any file. Advertisements for this ransomware builder is mainly on Telegram. But from the advertisement, a few key takeaways are it encrypts every file possible. So that includes the recycle bin, app data, saying fast encryption using AES or SHA. There's over 60 file types that are supported. it is a new generation ransomware, and they also list that it's been given approval by other threat actors. So it's gotten that verification. An additional feature to the builder also allows users of it to upload any kind of custom ransom notes or demands that they may have in an RFT file, just so they can detail the amount of ransom, or they can give some kind of contact information for any victims to possibly discuss negotiations or any further steps if they've been targeted with this builder. So researchers are indicating that the builder is only created by one solo person and is not a group. There is not full confirmation of that right now, but within direct messages from the threat actor, they are claiming that it is just them. And that is all I have for the ransomware roundup.
Thanks, Sarah. So
Mhm.
thanks everyone for speaking today. A big thank you to everybody that has taken the time to tune in to our briefing today. We hope you found the session informative. Enjoy the rest of your day and make sure to tune in next week.